The BS Report is a free-flowing conversation that occasionally touches on mature subjects.
First of all,
this is the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
It might be cool, I don't know. And if it's not, I don't care.
The BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Bill Simmons works for ESPN. He's also named the sports guy, and he writes a comical sports column. He must be a popular dude.
The BS Report.
It's got a real dirty sound, like a rusty steak knife cutting through a well-aged steak.
Now.
Here's Bill Simmons.
Welcome to BS Report, Part 2 of the Mega Playoff Pod. If you missed Part 1, we had Cousin Sal and Chad Millman breaking down the lines, the spreads, all the stuff Mike Lombardi is not allowed to talk about. But now he's here. And you're here on Black Monday. Oh, my God. Let's go backwards. Who hasn't been fired today?
It really is it's a really hard day in the NFL, and I think, each situation is so different, Bill, because each firing is results of some other things that have happened. Cleveland with the new ownership change, that happens when owners change. Lovie Smith in Chicago is fired because I think they need to rebuild the franchise, and each one is different. Philadelphia, Andy Reid's been there for so long, and San Diego, they had expectations. So I just think they're all different, but it is a tough day in the NFL. There's a lot of uncertainty going around, and when the owners have this much of labor peace and this much of generated revenues that are booked in, then I think you're going to see this for a little while.
Most shocking firing for you. For me, it was Ken Wisenhunt, although I guess I shouldn't have been shocked, but I actually think he's a good coach, and I thought that team played hard. Their quarterback position just annihilated them, as did the offensive line injuries. Do you think he was the best coach fired?
I think it's a difficult. Yeah, I think he was in a difficult situation because, as we know, Arizona has never been the land of the free and the home of the brave in terms of winning, and so it's not an easy place to win. And he was able to accomplish that Super Bowl with Kurt Warner at quarterback. And once the quarterback became difficult to replace, then everything unraveled. And I'm sure he signed off on the Kevin Kolb trade. But at the end of the day, the Kevin Kolb trade got a lot of people fired out in Arizona. Unfortunately, it didn't work out, and I think this is the result of it. And if you don't have a quarterback, and you don't have an alternative plan, this is what happens. 5 general managers got fired today as well. It used to be that was never the case, and I think we're seeing, this is all over. But I do think Ken's a good coach. I think Ken will resurface, and I think Ken has the ability to lead an offense and generate and get his team ready to play.
VP of Common, when you hire me for the VP of Common Sense, if you take any of these open GM jobs, I'm probably going to push hard for Wisenhunt. I think he's a good coach. I thought that even yesterday that team was playing hard they were totally overmatched against the Niners. That team was playing hard with Brian Hoyer.
Yeah, I agree. And look, what I think you're seeing also is the fact that the symmetry between the front office and the coaches in a lot of places don't seem to work well together right now. And there's dysfunction within that. And I think Bill Walsh would always say the Civil War is the ugliest war to fight in terms of the combination between the front office and the personnel department working in unison. And I think some of the moves that have been made haven't been there. And I think when you get everybody to understand their roles and you get enough talented people to do their jobs within their roles, then I think you can have success. And right now some of these teams aren't.
Lovie Smith, fair or unfair?
Well, I think Lovie, look, I think Phil Emery comes in, the new general manager, and he wants to change the team. He wasn't part of the culture that brought in the Pt.2 scheme. Remember, Jerry Angelo hired Lovie Smith to install that scheme. And if you're going to change scheme, if you're going to change your defense, you're probably better off changing Lovie, for Lovie's sake at least. I mean, Lovie will have an opportunity to go somewhere else perhaps and get another job and install what he believes in. But I think this was one of those situations where they're going to rebuild the team, especially on defense. And if they're going to make that decision, then they probably had to make a move with Lovie. Not that it's warranted in terms of making the move, but I think to get coaches to change, it's probably better off for them.
Best fit for Lovie, let's make believe that every coach who got fired today is going to get a head coaching job on another open team. Like, let's say we played roulette. What would be the best fit for Lovie Smith?
Oh, boy. I think Lovie Smith would be a good coach in Kansas City. They've got a really good young defense. I think they would play sound defensively. They'd have some issues offensively, but I think that's kind of what he took over in Chicago when he got there. I think that would be a similar job for him. Right now, Arizona would be another job that could be similar for him to be successful in the NFC. Good defense, have to find a way to fix the offense. Now, that's something that Lovey really hasn't been able to do. I mean, since he fired Ron Turner as his offensive coordinator, offense has been a problem with Lovey as the coach.
Andy Reid?
Oh.
Oh, God.
Well, I think Andy Reid would be good in Buffalo. I think Andy Reid would probably be good in Buffalo. It would give Buffalo people a coach who's got a lot of experience, a lot of wins, and it would give him a chance to build the team in his style and manner. I think Chan Gailey has done a remarkable job. I mean, I really mean this, a remarkable job at what he's done in Buffalo. I'm not saying he's a great head coach or all that, but I think the talent level that he had and the ability and the way he played each week, I think if you look at Buffalo, the depth of their team fell apart, and once that happened, then the team fell apart. And I think Chan did a good job, and especially early in the season when they could stay healthy, they could compete. So I think Andy Reid gives Buffalo some hope. He gives them a coach who's been successful, been to a Super Bowl.
So to be fair, Chan Gailey finished 16-32 as the Buffalo coach.
Right, and sometimes it's not reflective of that. And I'm not saying Chan's a great head coach. I think Chan Gailey there'll be a line waiting for him to be an offensive coordinator because he does every week. His game plans are very good.
So what do you think, out of all the open jobs, if you were a coach, what would be the job that you said, ooh, that's
well, the job that you're going to go, ooh, to would be the job that has a quarterback. And that's why when we had this conversation perhaps last August, San Diego looks like the premier job because, ooh, they got Phillip Rivers. But then we watched Phillip Rivers play. And now all of a sudden, whoa, where is that? How's that going to work out? He doesn't look like he's the same guy. And so, on the surface, you would say Jay Cutler in Chicago, can you get that fixed? Can you get him turned around? That looks like. But some of these other jobs, Philly, Cleveland, Kansas City, Buffalo, Arizona, they all need quarterbacks. That makes these jobs very difficult.
Yeah, I would say out of the open jobs, I would say Chicago is clearly the best job because they have offensive weapons. They were 10-6, right? Mm-hmm. They, I think they have an identity to some degrees that maybe, as you said, Lovey wasn't ideal for, but maybe somebody who's a little bit more of an offensive guru would be a nice job for them. Mm-hmm. Buffalo is intriguing too, just because, as you said, they have talent. They have some pieces. They need a quarterback. If I was a coach, I would never take a job if I didn't know who my quarterback was. Well, that's how you get burned.
Yeah, but that's the problem. It's like nobody just gives you a house in Beverly Hills.
Right.
You got to earn a house in Beverly Hills.
Right.
They just don't give it to you. Teams that have quarterbacks usually the coach is around a while. And so it's like coaches all the time. Guys that want to become first-time head coaches in college. Well, I don't think I'd take that job. They don't have any players. Well, of course they don't have any players. That's why you got a chance to get the job.
Well, were you surprised that any coach wasn't fired?
Well, I think two coaches, and Carolina, I think they're going to wait and see what they do with the general manager for Ron Rivera. They won 5, I think, the last 6 games, so that gives them some hope. I'm not sure what's going on in their front office right now, but they're on delay. And I think Jacksonville will ultimately make a change with Mike Mularkey, but I think they're going to hire their general manager first and go through that process. So that being said, I think it'll be that's 9. That's 9 teams, Bill.
And you didn't mention Tennessee, and they seem like they're keeping their coach, but you could have made a case that he should have gone too.
Well, I think they're keeping him because they want to try to see. Look, I think once the day started today, most people should have asked themselves the question: okay, who are we going to get? What's going to be left for us to hire if we fire our coach?
Dallas. Another team that possibly you could have talked me into. I mean, would you rather have Andy Reid or Jason Garrett? Would you rather have Norv Turner or Jason Garrett? To me, that's no contest.
Here's what I think could happen for Dallas, and I think this is probably a smart play. Norv Turner has a year left on his contract. He and Jason are very close friends. I could see Norv going in there and helping Jason run the offense, and I think that would be a really good move for Jason. That could help Jason out a lot, and I think that could help the Cowboys out a lot. That could be a lot better than starting over for Jerry Jones.
Chip Kelly has the most leverage right now of any potential coach. Is there anybody else you feel like has a ton of leverage? Kyle Shanahan?
Well, I think I think any coach who gets in front of an owner and shows leadership and toughness and the ability to control an organization, I think is going to have leverage. And I think that it's going to be like the draft. It's going to be beauty in the eye of the beholder, and who can identify those people with those qualities the best. And just because a guy moves the football effectively or his team is ranked in the top 5 in an area doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be a good head coach. It still comes down to there's a difference between a coach in charge of the assistants and a head coach. And I think there's a lost art in the NFL right now about finding guys who can become head coaches. And if you don't, you become an organization of independent contractors, which becomes very difficult to manage and very difficult to sustain success.
Who says no to Romo for Phil Rivers? I've asked you this now, I think, 4 times this season.
I don't think Romo for Phillip Rivers.
Yeah.
I would really be interested to see if I know, look, it was a horrible play, and I know Cousin Sal's probably ready to kill himself today, but I would like to see Tony Romo coached by. I would like to see them do more offensively before I would just ship Tony Romo out the door. I really would. I'd like to see them shift the formation. I like to see them be creative. I like to see them do something that doesn't necessarily always rely on their players and Romo to win with.
Have you seen a more one-sided coaching game that was actually a close game than that Dallas-Washington game? It felt like Washington just outthought them every single step of the way.
Yeah, look, I thought Dallas was the wounded team, and I said it in the morning on First on the Field. I thought Dallas was going to have a hard time maintaining anything during the game, and the longer the game went, the injuries were going to mount up, and it was going to be tough on Dallas. I mean, when you win a game and your quarterback completes 9 passes and you throw for 100 yards, that's fairly remarkable. That's Christian Ponderous. There should be a name of that we give it. That's pretty remarkable to do that, and the Redskins were able to do that.
Maybe we call it a ponder.
A ponder, yeah. I think that's the right name for it.
All right, we got to. I don't know how much time we have for you, or how much time you have for us, but playoff matchups quickly. Cincy, Houston, who do you like?
I like Cincinnati here. And I stop. Let me stop for a second. Cincinnati, Baltimore, and I said this on First on the Field. Baltimore was not interested in winning that game yesterday.
No, they did not want to win the game. Yes.
And Cincinnati, with their ones and everything, and all their backups, was struggling to get the lead. I'm sure Baltimore was probably saying on their sideline, I mean, really, are you guys not going to win this game? Are you not going to do this? And so after that, and I know Houston hasn't played well, but Houston plays better at home. I think Houston will, be able to double team A.J. Green. I'm going to go with Houston to win here. I think Houston's the better team. I know Houston will struggle to block, but they'll find a way to manufacture some points. I think this is a game where, look, Cincinnati struggled to beat Philadelphia on Thursday night. I mean, I like Cincinnati's defense, but I don't think Cincinnati's defense can play doubleheaders. At some point, the quarterback's going to have to make some plays. I don't know if he's going to be able to do it against Houston.
In your opinion, what the hell happened to Houston?
Well, a couple factors. They lose a couple players on defense, and that hurts them. And they lose their ability to really generate the pressure on the quarterback. And I think their offensive line, when it has to pass protect, and everybody in America knows it has to pass protect, becomes a problem. And they don't have an alternative to Andre Johnson, whether Owen Daniels is the same player or whether Kevin Walters is the same player. But I think really people like New England take away Andre Johnson, force the ball to go to someone else, and then see what happens. And I don't think that's really what pans out. And, that's a shocker yesterday, losing to Indianapolis. And I know Indy was an emotional team and they played hard and all that, but that's a game that they let slip away and cost them a bye.
You trust Matt Schaub?
Well, I trust Matt Schaub when he has a lead, he has a running game, and I think he complements what they do offensively. But when he gets out of his comfort zone and they get behind and he has to throw the ball and they have to protect for him, then it becomes problematic. I think I think they're managing Matt Schaub very effectively. And I think sometimes if the game doesn't play his style, then I don't think that it works out well. He's like those guys in basketball that one night they score 20, and then the next night they play somebody who's they score 4. Did I mention Evan Turner to that?
Other AFC matchup, Chuck Strong on the road, Baltimore. I don't love the way Baltimore is playing. The Colts are a little smoke and mirrors, but we know what the smoke is. It's been magical. At what point does that run out?
I love Chuck, and I love the story, and I think Bruce Arians has done a great job. But at some point, I don't think they continue this. And, Baltimore's a wounded team right now. Perhaps they'll get healthier, but I just don't see how they can beat Baltimore. I really don't. I think when they go on the road and if you pressure the quarterback and you control a lot of what Indianapolis does, if you take Andrew Luck and just think Big Ben, that's kind of who Indianapolis is. He moves in the pocket. Yesterday, his movement, his ability to keep plays alive, and they've got these receivers that can run with the ball after the catch and make big plays. They do a great job with their scheme. I mean, they really do a nice job, but they have a hard time stopping anybody, and I think they'll have a hard time stopping Baltimore. I think Indianapolis is the dream season is going to come to an end.
I was talking about that with either Chad or Sal. I can't even remember because we've been talking for a while now. But Houston's front seven was in the backfield for every Colts play. And as you said, Luck really did pull a Roethlisberger in that game. I don't know how he did it. I thought that was his best game in a lot of ways because he could have been sacked 12 times.
And he could have thrown 4 interceptions, but none of them happened. And it's just kind of the way it happens. And I mean, I give them all the credit in the world. And the one thing the one thing about them is they are mentally tough and they're going to keep fighting. You're going to have to put them away, But when they went back and played the Jets, they couldn't really do much against the Jets. They played New England for a quarter fairly hard. Then New England took over the game. I mean, when they go against a good team on the road, I think it becomes a problem. Not that the Jets were a good team, but the Jets defense really gave them a lot of problems, and he couldn't make those plays against the Jets, and that became problematic for him.
Biggest weakness on the Colts secondary?
I think their inability to, twofold. They struggle to stop the run. I mean, Kansas City, did they run for 350 yards against them and still lost?
Ooh, I forgot about that. That's a good point.
I mean, so they, and then the secondary. Now they'll play better. And I think, look, the Ravens offensive line has not played well of recent weeks. So, but if they throw the ball on early downs and they can minimize the effectiveness that Freeney and Mathis can cause for the Colt defense, then I think that'll be a better game. But that's a challenge, and they're going to have to be able to block the Ravens front. Now, look, the Ravens front hasn't been the greatest pass rushers, but they're physical and they move the line back. It'll be a challenge.
Can we at least agree that the Patriots will be watching these AFC weekend games rooting for Houston to beat Cincinnati, so they play Houston instead of Baltimore?
Well, I would probably say that, although Baltimore's a different team than the one they played in week 3 of the season or week 4, whatever that was. I would say that, they'll probably, they know Houston, they know Baltimore, so they're in pretty good shape there. I would think, probably playing Houston the way Houston's playing right now, I would say that would probably be the team they would root for.
Pats were the big winners yesterday.
Huge winners.
They go from looking at round 1 against Cincy. Cincy's not great, but they're physical. They would have had to at least, break a serious sweat in that game. And then, round 2, all of a sudden go into Houston. And then you flip the script, you get a bye. 2 more weeks for Gronk. You get, you don't have to see Denver now until the AFC title game, definitely, because Houston blew that 1 seed. I mean, that couldn't have worked out better in every respect. And now it really looks like Pats Broncos. If you had to give an edge, Broncos like by a hair?
I think it'll be a great game. I think, the Broncos are a better team than the team that New England beat. And I think New England's probably will be a better team with Talib if he's healthy and Dennard healthy. I think that was a huge win. That was a huge break for New England to be able to get that, to get Hernandez healthier, to get Gronkowski healthier, to get Spikes healthier, to get Talib and Dennard healthier, to get all their players healthier. I think that was a huge break, so they didn't have to go through the 3 games of climbing the mountain to get there. So, and Denver, look, Denver's got it going. They're tough to play at home, and I think it'll be a challenge. Now, could Cincinnati go out there and play them if Cincinnati were to upset Houston? I think they could, but I think at the end of the day, Cincinnati can't keep pace with them, and it would be a hard game to win for them.
It's really hard for Cincy to score.
Yeah. It really
I mean,
is.
it's like 20 points is
painful
about
to
their
watch.
max. Yeah.
It's painful to watch. Yeah, I mean, it's really difficult. I mean, they just don't do it.
And that's the thing with the Pats. Like, the Pats are probably going to be in the high 20s against just about anybody, and I think that would have been a bad matchup for Cincy. Baltimore is a much, much more winnable game for them. NFC, Seattle favored in Washington by a field goal. Not that you're allowed to think about spreads, but
that's interesting that Seattle would be the favorite. But you could see that because here, look, Washington hasn't thrown the football effectively since RG3's been hurt.
Yep.
And it's really hard to run the ball in Seattle, home or away. And Russell Wilson's best if you blitz him and he can make some loose plays. I think it'll be a defensive struggle, be an interesting game. I could see Seattle's a tough team to play. They're really good in the kicking game. They're good in all three phases. And they've got confidence. And when you have confidence, I mean, look, the only teams that really play Seattle in the last month well have been the teams when San Francisco didn't. But look, St. Louis played them well. I mean,
they did.
You got to know how to play Seattle to really understand. They'll be physical with the receivers. And, look, if Pete Carroll knows anything, he knows how to defend option football, and he also knows how to defend the outside zone because that's what they run in Seattle.
St. Louis did something interesting. They really, really wanted Wilson to throw deep. They were kind of daring him the whole time. Please, please, please. And, doing the whole thing, just pounding the line, pounding the receivers. Made me wonder. What we saw yesterday with Washington was a little gimmicky. They were just blitzing and Dallas just could never figure it out. I don't know if that's going to work against Seattle. And I don't know if Washington is good enough defensively to kind of mix it up and do different things depending on the series. Do you think they are?
Well, I don't know. I think Washington will struggle to, mix it up. I think unless RG3 can really get healthy and if you take away what Washington's similar to Houston in the sense if they have to straight drop back pass, if Washington gets behind in the game quickly, there's no way they're blocking Clements. There's no way they're blocking Irvin. There's no way they're blocking Mebane. There's no way they're blocking any of these defense. Red Bryant. They're not going to be able to. That offensive line is not good enough to block those guys in a drop back setting. Now they can block them if they have to play with a play action and RG3 can move around. But I think it'll be a hard game for them. But they're going to have to play the pace. They're going to have to get their lead.
Minnesota at Green Bay rematch. Phenomenal game. Probably top 3 or 4 game this season. I could not have enjoyed it more. And then on top of it, you had the Peterson record just kind of hanging over the game. And then it really seemed like he might get it at the end. But huge difference with Vikings playing home versus Christian Ponder on the road in Lambeau. Do you trust him at all?
No. I think, look, they just spent a lot of energy to win that game. I think it's a great story. I thought they would win. They're a different team at home. That makes them 7-1 this year at home. And so they did exactly what they had to do. I think they'll give Green Bay a tough challenge, but Green Bay will have more time to throw the football. The crowd noise won't help the defensive line of the Vikings as much. And I just have a hard time thinking that Adrian Peterson can come back and have almost another 200-yard day against the Green Bay defense. I mean, I suspect now weather's going to play a factor here too. I mean, we're talking Green Bay, Wisconsin. We're talking storm. If the wind's blowing in a direction, I think that'll change the game. Could change the outcome of the game completely. But I really believe that Green Bay, it's going to be hard for the Green Bay if they can't stop Peterson from running for another 200 yards in the third week. Then they really don't have any defense.
If let's say it's bad weather, windy, doesn't that help Minnesota? Because if it turns into just a game where you can't throw the ball,
that's exactly what I'm saying. That's exactly what.
Yeah. That's it. That's their chance. They need a storm.
They need a storm. They need to win in one direction. They need to be a ball control game. They need to win with the kicking game. They need to make a few plays, not a lot, a few plays, and they need to get it down to a kicker where Mason Crosby's got to deal with wind and elements.
Yeah, I don't think he's ready to. He's going to kill the Packers at some point. I don't know if it's going to be this week.
Well, it's going to be when it's weather. When it's going to be weather. When you have to play it 4 yards outside the goalpost. And you have to bring it back. I mean, those are the hard kicks. The dome kicks aren't the ones you worry about.
Yeah. Are you sold on the Packers? Like, Jordy Nelson got hurt again. Jennings is still playing himself back to Greg Jennings' speed. And are you sold on all their weapons being healthy?
I'm not. I mean, I think Rodgers does, some remarkable things and overcomes some things with the offense, especially they've had a little bit of a running game more. I worry more about their defense. I worry more about their defense getting control of the game and being able to handle it. I think San Francisco and Seattle would be a tough matchup for Green Bay. I think that game that we watched on Monday night that Seattle got the gift, I think both teams are different. And if that game had to be played again, I'm not sure Green Bay could win it again, but I think those are the three teams that you have to worry about the most in there. And then Atlanta is the wild card for me. I want to see how Atlanta comes out and plays after the week off and goes from there.
How many teams do you think could actually win the Super Bowl?
Win the Super Bowl.
Win the Super Bowl. So you Denver, New England, obviously.
Win the Super Bowl. Always that answer right now as we sit comes down to quarterback play. Could Matt Ryan win it? Yeah. Could Peyton Manning win it? Yes. Could Tom Brady win it? Yes. Could Andy Dalton win it? No. Could I said Aaron Rodgers. Could Colin Kaepernick? Yeah, I think he probably could the way they play.
Wow.
Could Russell Wilson? Yeah, I think he probably could the way they play. But I think it's going to come down to quarterbacks.
So you have Seattle, San Fran, Green Bay, or you don't like their defense enough?
No, I think it comes down to Green. I think Rodgers has proven he can overcome everything.
So you have 6 teams. So if you had to pick right now, what's your Super Bowl?
I had San Francisco, Baltimore to start the year. I would say San Francisco, Denver.
San Francisco, Denver. I like the way Denver's playing. I know you could pick apart their streak they had, but they bring it every single week. Every week they take care of business. Even yesterday, the Chiefs were getting a little frisky and got inside the 10 twice, and the Broncos just shut it down. Then they score, and all of a sudden they're up 21-3. And at some point that's not an accident. I think they're really good. I'm also impressed their defense can hold and extend leads, which I don't even think the Patriots can do.
Well, it's hard. I think there was a moment where in the Houston game where you saw the Patriots defense when they were healthy and on the field, they were playing good. Then all of a sudden the pieces all fell apart, and we haven't even factored in the injury level here. What happens if you lose a guy in a game, and that becomes problematic.
So you're feeling it's just like every other recent playoff where you have 6 teams that have a chance probably, and it's going to come down to 1 or 2 breaks, an injury, some play that gets made, and yeah, I think I'm with you. I don't think there's a favorite. I don't love anybody. I think Denver's in the best position to succeed just because I think they're going to have an easy round 2 game. And then they have the Pats in Denver, which I think is nice. But, yeah, I don't think there's a favorite.
We know this.
Denver.
We know that home field advantage really doesn't matter when it comes to the conference championship round. And we know that it always typically goes 50-50. So let's say San Francisco or let's say Atlanta hosts San Francisco and Denver hosts New England, I would say, one home team's going to win there and one road team's going to win.
You don't have any news for us, do you, about Mike Lombardi?
No news at all. Today's just the first day where actually jobs have officially opened up. So I keep charging my phone. I'm hoping it's going to ring. I don't know.
What did I say was the year of Lombardi? 2010?
Yeah.
I think that was 2009. What was the year I anointed the year of Lombardi?
I think it was 2009. Yeah, I think it was 2009.
It was 2009? 2013 has year of Lombardi potential.
We'll see.
There's a lot of jobs open. Well,
there is a lot of jobs, and I think this is an interesting. I think what you saw, like I said earlier, I think this is the league right now has got to find a way to get in unison with front. When you see 5 front offices open up and you see 7 head coaching jobs, there's obviously not a lot of symmetry working between two areas.
Last thing I noticed, that the whole draft positioning thing got kind of swept under the rug yesterday because there's no consensus number 1. Thought it was really interesting that the Eagles and Lions both got top 5 picks. Both of those teams have talent.
Yeah.
Like even the Chiefs getting the first pick, they have talent. They have 5 Pro Bowlers. I do think that one of those teams in the top 5 could easily do what the Vikings did this year and just flip the script, and all of a sudden they're 10-6.
Yeah, look, a lot of it has to do with schedule. When you get to play, who was Minnesota's AFC schedule?
I think it was Jack, the AFC South, right?
The South, yeah. So you get, so you get that. You get the South, and now all of a sudden you got a chance to rack up some wins, and you get against a division where you can beat and handle, and next thing you know, you're on your way.
Who could have imagined the NFC West was going to be the best division? Never saw that one coming.
No, New England's 1-3 against the West. 3 of New England's 12-4 as a team. They're 1-3 against the West. And St. Louis suffered their first West loss yesterday.
Don't think I wasn't emailing with some Pats fans yesterday talking about that Cardinals loss. So that cost the Pats the number 1 seed. Cost them home field advantage, everything. the stupid game that they never should have let the Cardinals hang around. They got the miracle fumble. They got the touchdown. They got called back on some block on Gronkowski that I'm still trying to figure out what the penalty was.
Well,
And
the reason you can't figure it out is because the guy who made the call shouldn't have made the call. He doesn't have the tight end on that play. But,
it's terrible.
You know,
and then the Pats got super conservative for one of the few times in the Belichick era where you can really point at the coaching and be like, we were too conservative. We didn't have enough balls in that situation. And then Gostkowski misses an easy kick. And now they have to go to Denver in round 3 potentially. So, yeah, it's tough not to come back. Denver never had a game like that after the first month.
No, Denver.
They took care of business in all their dumb games that they could have lost. They always took care of business.
The thing is going to be interesting. I think Belichick talked about this in the perfect season. They never had now Denver has the 24-0 game against San Diego. That they overcame that. But there's always challenges that your team has to fight through. The Packers at 9-6. I think they didn't lose a game that year by more than 4 points. I mean, they had to fight through a lot of games. They lost 2 in overtime. 2 by 3 points. I mean, whatever. Same thing with the Giants. So I think there is something about building your team up and being mentally tough. That's the one thing about the Colts. Baltimore can beat the Colts, but they're not going to go away. You're going to have to play 60 minutes to put them away.
Right. Mike Lombardi, where can we see you this week? NFL Network, what shows?
NFL Network on Friday and Saturday and Sunday on First on the Field, and then Inside the NFL on Showtime on Wednesday.
Are you going to any locations?
No, we're going to stay right here and do it out of Mount Films. Loving it.
Would have been a little Baltimore-Washington trip would have been interesting.
It would have been, yeah, right on the belt.
That's
right. It was an easy
ones.
train ride. You could have done that, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Mike Lombardi, we will
Thanks,
talk
Bill.
to you next week for round 2. Thanks as always.
All right, bye-bye.
All right, last but not least, we have to have one Redskins fan on here because as far as I can remember, House, when was your last playoff? It was you had a terrible quarterback. Who was it?
Hail to the Redskins! Hail victory! Hello?
Yeah. Who was your quarterback in that playoff game? Who was it? Todd Collins?
Sure, it was Todd Collins. Yes.
Wow.
Yep.
When was the last time you won a playoff game?
We won in 2005. We beat Tampa Bay in the wild card, and then went and lost to Seattle.
Oh, I remember that. Jason Campbell. Right?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. In Tampa Bay, you beat. I can't remember. They had somebody bad at QB.
Yeah.
I think I might have picked your team. So anyway, this is the most excited Redskins fans have been in a long time. There was people crying in the stands last night. And
They were?
yeah, that's what
I
heard.
didn't see any crying.
I heard there was crying.
That could have been.
An emotional 2012 for you. You had the Nationals became a playoff team. You had your first gut punch baseball loss in a long, long time. The Wizards have turned into the new Clippers, and the torch has been passed, right?
They are who we thought they were.
The torch has been passed. I said this on TV, and Wilbon thought I was crazy. It's like, well, who is the black sheep of the NBA now? The Clippers can no longer be considered the black sheep. The Warriors are a playoff team. Who is the black sheep? It's the Wizards. They have to be the Wizards.
Who else could it be? Nobody else
has
is
to
even
be.
in the running. Charlotte, I guess you could try and come up with an
No.
argument, but they made the playoffs 2 years ago.
You've won one playoff series in 30 years.
That makes us pretty black
You had
as far as sheep go. As far as sheep go.
You also had the worst scandal that happened in the league since Latrell Sprewell, the worst incident, the gun incident with Arenas.
Right.
You had the dumbest contract anybody's handed out other than Rashard Lewis was the Arenas extension. And I actually went and looked this up. When the Arenas extension happened, I emailed you asking for some sort of defense for it because it just seemed so bizarre that they were giving that much money. And you said something along the lines of, I can't defend it. It's completely indefensible.
Wow.
You were right. You're on record.
I agree.
The Okafor Ariza trade was one of the worst trades anyone's made in the last decade.
That's strong.
It's not? You have no cap space this summer. You're a 3-win team with no cap space.
It was a bad trade, but
it was horrible. What are you talking about?
was
You
bad.
can't defend that trade in a million years. This is the dumbest trade anyone's made in 5 years.
what's so crazy is that neither one of those guys can play basketball. I mean, maybe Ariza can in a different situation, but that's what's so weird about that trade. That's the part of it that gets you deep down. Did
I was telling
anybody from Washington watch either one of those guys play basketball the last 2 years?
And Wilbon and I argued about this for weeks before he finally conceded. And I was saying, like, Wilbon was saying, well, they had to change the clubhouse character. It's like, well, fine. Well, go sign Reggie Love. Reggie Love's a good guy. You just pay him the minimum if you want to change your clubhouse character. You don't have to pay Okafor $13 billion a year.
That's right.
Anyway, we're distracted.
We are distracted.
The Redskins, RG3, limping around. Alfred Morris, where did he come from? The Shanahans.
I went to a wedding early this fall. It was at a ranch that abuts Joshua Tree National Park. And when I went to this wedding, one of the things I told folks when I got back home here to D.C., I was telling people about it. It was amazing, and what was particularly poignant about it was, my eyes haven't seen things like that. I haven't seen that desert, that kind of California desert, and the way the sky looks. It was almost like being on a different planet. Honestly, that's the way I feel right now with the Washington sports scene in general. I mean, we didn't even touch on the Caps, which is appropriate, but starting all the way back in April, the way that Ovechkin played defense, and then you go through the summer with the Nats, and now right up here to this moment with this Washington Redskins football team, two rookies. When's the last time that happened? That carried the team, changed the whole trajectory of the franchise. And they started off with the same kind of Washington bad flavor, bad stink, bad stench, 3-6, and one guy, if you believe in the narrative, put his foot down and said, I'm not having it. And the combination of that one young fella and the 60-year-old coach just put the whole thing on their back, and here we are today. NFC East champions.
Maybe it started with the day you traded for Griffin.
Sure, that's right.
That was the first, and I think we had you in the podcast. I think that was the first genuinely exciting Washington sports moment. Because, you get Strasburg, you get Bryce Harper. It's exciting, but
those are exciting moments.
But you knew they were coming, though, because you had the number one pick. This was kind of like, whoa, what?
Well, nothing like football here anyway.
Yeah.
Football trumps everything.
True.
But no, that's right. Yeah, for sure. A humongous trade, and it was in every respect, the gamble of all gambles, the Hail Mary pass, whatever you want to call it. And, they knocked it out of the park.
I have a serious question for you. You know those body switch movies that we grew up with? Where people would wake up, they made a wish, and they'd switch bodies?
Yeah.
Do you think Ted Leonsis and Dan Snyder have switched bodies?
No. And in fact, the only thing, well, actually, that's a weird question, and we could bore people with 30 minutes of going into whether or not Ted Leonsis is a good sports owner. He's a very good marketer of his brands, and he's excellent at making money off his brands.
He's a good person. We like him as a person.
Clearly good guy, right? He's got a lot of interest, but whether or not he's a good sports owner is a whole different thing. The only thing I will say about Snyder, it was the only downside to any of my enjoyment of last night was seeing him in the box jumping up and down.
How much would you have paid for a doctored feed where every time they show Snyder in the luxury suite, it gets blurred out? You can't see him.
Yeah, Blurkle Snyder.
$75 a game for that?
Oh, I mean, sure. Yeah, 75. Yeah, yes, definitely in.
So you didn't go last night?
No, I went old school. I got together with the guys that I grew up with, guys from my neighborhood. I drove back to my neighborhood, and there was 10 of us. Ordered pizza from the place we've been ordering pizza from our whole lives.
And it's tough. It's tough for you because you're a celebrity now from House Eats, and I'm sure it must be weird for those guys when people are staring at you in the restaurant and the chef's scared that you're there.
No, I didn't have anything. Okay. We had the pizza brought in.
Come on, you're 74,000 views. All right, go ahead. I'm sorry, I interrupted.
No, we just went old school with it. We were in my buddy's basement with the guys, the basement of the house that I grew up in for all intents and purposes. So we
ate a lot of pizza.
Ate a lot of pizza. may or may not have had 4 or 6 or 8 or 12 beers, some number in there, and got up and sang every time he scored a touchdown.
Were you waiting on the Tony Romo pick, or were you just kind of hoping it was coming?
I was hoping. I was hoping that Romo would be Romo. I mean, I was nervous. I was nervous almost the whole game. It was hard. Not so nervous that I didn't eat. I'm not going to say how many pieces because the pizza place we ordered from comes in pans. It's a pan style thing. But yeah, more than one pan was consumed. But other than feeding myself that way, I was nervous through the whole thing because the Cowboys have demonstrated, especially over the last half of the season, and it was true again last night, they can really move the ball sometimes. They just get hot. Romo gets hot. Dez gets hot. The receiving core, is fearsome. We were lucky that Miles Austin, got dinged early that way. But the Harris guy is great too.
Dez went out. That helped.
Yeah, he went out right there towards the very end. But the touchdown and 2-pointer they scored in about what felt like 32 seconds.
Yeah.
I was very, very, very nervous that we were going to see a repeat of that. Plus, this Redskins team has lost in excruciating fashion this year. The loss to the Giants up in whatever they're calling Giant Stadium these days, where Eli threw a 74-yard pass over the top after the Redskins had scored a touchdown to go ahead with 90 seconds left. I was worried that something like that might happen, but God bless Romo.
So who's the best team you beat this year? Baltimore?
Yeah, in retrospect, it's got to be Baltimore.
Seahawks are the best team you've played this year, right?
They will be the best team that we'll play, right?
You didn't play the Pats. You didn't play San Francisco. You didn't play Green Bay.
Nope.
You didn't play Denver.
No, did not play any of those teams. Played Atlanta. Played Atlanta really tough. I mean, honestly, could have won that game.
Yeah, you should have won that game.
Right.
I agree. I think you should have won the game.
Yeah, we were there. I think that was the game where we had an unsportsmanlike penalty. We were driving and had a chance to attempt a game-tying field goal.
No, Griffin got hurt in that game. Or
Griffin got hurt. That's right.
Yeah, you're going to win that game.
That's right.
That was one of Atlanta's many garbage wins.
Right.
So now you have my man Russell Wilson coming. It's going to be a good one.
How you feeling about it?
I thought the line was very fair. It was 2.5. It probably ends up at 3, maybe even 3.5. Seattle is a better all-around team, but the home field's going to help you.
The home field's going to help.
RG3 is going to help you. RG3's got legitimate. There's something about that dude, but Russell has the same quality. Really, I almost wish they weren't playing in round 1. There's probably my 2 favorite playoff teams to watch in the NFC, and they have to go head-to-head. I guess Peterson's been great to watch, too. It's a great, 4 great NFC playoff teams round 1.
Every year it seems to work out this way. The right teams are in the playoffs, and the matchups are so scintillating. This is my favorite weekend. The first weekend. The first 2 weekends are great, but this weekend.
No, round 1's the best. Because round 2, there's blowouts in round 2. Denver's going to beat the hell out of whoever they play in round 2.
Yep.
But these ones, even the one that's probably not going to be close is the Chuck Strong element to it,
Yeah, right. Who knows?
Plus, you have a Baltimore home game and a Washington home game in the same weekend. That's kind of cool.
That's fun.
Yeah.
I don't really care about Baltimore, but
well, it's kind of fun. They're right near each other.
I guess. So give me in the 30-second version. How's Sal doing?
Well, Sal passed along a little message. So first of all, he's very down in the dumps. He's very upset.
Yeah, I really, deliberately didn't email or tweet or nothing at him.
Really upset. I mean, the loss was bad enough, but then to start this whole Romo cycle again, which, he's a Romo defender, and that was probably Romo's most egregious game.
That's saying something.
Just three horrible interceptions.
Yeah.
And then the last one was probably the all-time bad interception he's had. But he said to send a message along. He will be recovered in time for house seats in New Orleans.
Oh, no. So it's on.
I think it's going to be on. Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I think it's going to be on.
I'm nervous. He is a competitor not to be trifled with. I've seen him.
You're the only two people I know who have been described as animals when you eat. So I don't really know who's favored. I think it's a pick 'em.
Well,
people
I
in all
appreciate
seriousness, people in all seriousness have described each of you as animals.
That's fine. I accept that. I embrace it. It's a fact. All you need to do is watch the first video.
Do you have any last words for the people in Seattle who you've always liked, who you defended them when their team got stolen? You like their fans. You feel bad for them that Durant's in Oklahoma City. You thought they got screwed over in the Super Bowl with some of the calls. Now you have to beat them and break their hearts in round one. Any last words for them?
You're here because the referees cheated for you at the beginning of the season, and we're going to deliver the justice that you deserve right here where the Supreme Court resides, the nation's capital. We are dealing out the justice.
I like it. Seattle, take note. You know, Sal and I talked about this, but there is a scenario here where you could have Seattle go into Green Bay in the NFC title game.
Wow.
It's very realistic. We could just solve this Golden Tate thing once and for all. Green
that
Bay,
would
all
be
right.
great.
Green Bay, you've been bitching about it for 4 months. Here you go. Beat them.
I can't root for it because I'm rooting for my
for
team. But if my team, something happens and we don't pull it out on Sunday, then I will start rooting for that because that is delicious.
Before you go, can we just quickly talk Wiz?
Sure. Of course we can.
I think this is the all-time rock bottom for the Wiz.
That's really saying something.
Not only are you horrendous and will probably have the worst record in the league, but as you predicted before the season, the John Wall thing, he's not back and not close to coming back. And then on top of that, there's no number one pick.
That's the part. Damn it.
There's nobody, you don't have like the Durant that you can be like, all right, well, at least I'm going to throw myself into X's season, player X's season, and now I can root for this guy, and at least I can focus on him and hope we get him.
I mean, if
you don't even have that.
If you think that I'm looking at the white kid in Indiana and said, oh, yeah, baby, here we come.
I have a kid for you.
All right.
I have a kid that I like.
All right.
I'm attaching myself to his bandwagon a little bit early. UNLV.
Oh.
Anthony Bennett.
Okay.
Power forward. Old school. Low post. Shoves his ass into people to create space. Can score with back to the basket and play above the rim. Exciting. Has a little something. I think he's going to gain steam. I have not watched a lot of college hoops this year yet, but I've been kind of dabbling. I watched the Kentucky-Louisville game. I've been trying to see different people.
Yeah.
The UNLV kid, who for some reason is not being considered the consensus number one yet, that guy's going to be a good NBA player.
We certainly have room for a power forward here because the big white chicken from Czechoslovakia still has more fouls than points.
Is that
We're
true?
only third of the way through the season.
He has more fouls than points still, Jan Vesley?
He did 2 games ago. I will confess I haven't looked since the latest loss, but it's right there, neck and neck. They are neck and neck.
At some point, go and start Googling this Bennett kid.
I'm on it. I'm going to do it as soon as we hang up the phone.
Very, very exciting. I'm so glad that there's a potentially a power forward coming into basketball who has a low post game.
That would be, now you're saying it. I'm getting more excited. If we're really going to talk basketball, though, what the hell is going on with the Celtics?
It's really bad.
They hit the wall, finally?
They lost to the Clippers. They lost to the Warriors, and they lost to the Kings by a combined 69 points. That
is not strong.
We went to the game on Wednesday, the Clips game. I think it was Wednesday. It was just sad. It was like they immediately had no chance. I took a ride home. It was 18-4.
I remember.
It was 18-4, and then it's like you can't even look at it and go, "Oh, we might have a chance here," or we'll chip away because the Clips they have these 10-0 streaks whenever they want, basically with their bench.
Well, what's wrong with Pierce? It used to be that when the Celtics needed a basket, they needed to stop a run. They needed, they want to call a timeout to slow things down. Pierce could be counted on to do something good. What the hell is wrong with Paul Pierce?
He's 35 years old.
Okay.
And the team is just Zach and I talked about this last week. They're a disaster when KG comes out of the lineup. They're just a disaster. They can't. They just can't defend when he's not out there.
So they should have overpaid for the Steamer. That's what you're saying.
Steamer's not even playing. The other thing is, I want to blame all the new guys. I do think it's a valid excuse, and I do think there's something to continuity and playing with guys enough to know where they're going to be and what they're doing and all that stuff. But the Clippers don't have that with their second unit. Like they have Bledsoe, Crawford, Barnes, Odom, and Turiaf. 4 of those guys weren't on the team last year, and those guys are fine. So I think that's a crutch. The big disappointment for me, which I tweeted about, is just Rondo. Like it's year 7, and if you're the best player in the team and you're going to make a big stink before the year on this is my team now, and you're going to do that whole thing, part of your job is to lift the team up when they don't have it. And they didn't have it against the Clippers.
How would you propose that he do it? I haven't looked at their shooting percentage, but it's not good.
Well, here's the thing. What we're realizing is he's just not that player. He's an awesome complementary player who's going to give you 13 points and 12 assists and 5 rebounds every night, right?
He's only capable of forcing his will in a certain way.
Yeah, he can't.
And it may or may not be game-changing. Yeah,
he's not a guy who could be like, these guys aren't playing well. I'm going to take over this game. Because, like Chris Paul's in first and second gear in this Clipper team. But like in Utah, he's like, all right, I'm going to go to fifth gear now. We need me tonight. I'm going to do this. I'm not going to let us lose tonight. And I thought Rondo had that in him, and now I'm starting to think that he doesn't. Like, remember that Miami game when he scored like 48 or whatever he had in the playoffs?
Yep.
And he just like the will for him to win was, you could just see it. And I'm not seeing it with him this year. It
really is on the offensive end. It really is on his ability to finish, to shoot, open jump shots and to get to the rim and get fouled.
Yeah, because, Magic's been saying on TV all year about, Rondo's got to step up. He's got to make up the scoring. I did this in 1987. And every time it's like, well, you're you for a reason. You're the 4th best player of all time. Like, this is a guy who doesn't like to score or get fouled.
Yeah, he don't have it in him.
He doesn't have it in him. And, they were counting on Jeff Green, who just is not a good basketball player. I hate to say
it's a nice story. I'm glad he's back in the league.
He's not good at basketball.
Root for him, just not good at basketball.
Here's the problem with Jeff Green. Like, he's really like, you watch him and he'll have these moments, you'll be like, oh. But if he has one bad play or does one dumb thing, he falls apart.
Yeah.
He's almost like a quarterback who throws one pick and then it's just deer in the headlights. Like, he literally falls apart. He single-handedly lost them the Clipper game. They were down 4. He screwed up a play. They scored. He screwed up again. It was like this 5-play sequence. All of a sudden, we're down 10, literally just because of him. So, they were counting on him. They gave him the money. And see, now you don't want to hear me vent about the Celtics.
You're right. You're right. Well, actually, I kind of do, because it means we don't talk about the Wizards.
The one hope is, like, if Avery Bradley can come back, and then they can move some of their extra bodies for a rebounder.
So who are the extra bodies? Like Courtney Lee?
Yeah, you move like Courtney Lee, Sullinger, Fab Melo, a number 1 pick, and you try to get Varejao, something like that.
Wow.
Like, if you're thinking about we can still win this year, you just mortgage everything to try to get it. I'd love for them to get Cousins, but everyone I'm talking to is saying Cousins isn't going anywhere this year.
It doesn't make any sense for Sacramento. I mean, they just
because they're trying to sell the team. Yeah, you don't make a trade like that if you're trying to sell the team.
Right.
Or
you're not
trying
to
to
get fair price for them.
No, you move the team, or you sell, or you realize you stay where you are, or whatever. But then that's when you decide, all right, what should we do about this guy? I would overpay for Cousins. Here's what I would give up for Cousins. I would give up Courtney Lee because he's got a good salary, right? Fab Melo, Sullinger, and I would give them my next 3 number 1 picks in staggered years.
I think it's funny that you keep saying you give up Fab Melo. You mean the D-League dominator, Fab Melo?
He had 14 blocks.
Congratulations.
I would overpay for Cousins. I think it's their last chance to get somebody who could be like a top 20 guy.
But what if he's a psychopath?
There's no evidence that he is.
All there is that there's nothing but evidence that he is. Why does he keep misbehaving? Why did he punch what's his face in the balls? Why did he punch O.J. Mayo in the balls?
Why did Dwayne Wade kick Ramon Sessions in the balls? Sessions.
That was a flail.
He kicked him in the balls. What are you talking about? Here's why I think Cousins can be salvaged. Go ask any Kentucky Wildcat fan how they feel about Cousins. All the Wildcat fans love him. He was great on Kentucky.
He was there for 1 year. He was barely there. He played 30 games. How would any of them have a perspective?
Because he was in a really good situation. I feel like if you take somebody who is shaky and you put them in the shakiest possible situation, which he's in now, he's in the worst possible basketball team in the worst possible franchise, he's going to be shaky.
Okay.
If you put that guy on a good team with a good coach and good veterans in a good situation, he's going to be good. I just think that's who he is. How many teams was Zebo on?
It's a good theory.
Zebo was on 5 teams before he found the right team.
Well,
4 teams.
That doesn't mean that, but then you're talking about the second team. The Celtics would overpay to get him. That would only be a second. Anyway.
Well,
he's a tremendous talent. I still wonder if, I know the answer, but talent-wise, I could make the case for him to have gone to Washington with the number 1 overall pick in that draft ahead of John Wall.
The big screw up was Minnesota passing on him and taking Wes Johnson.
Yeah, that's true.
And Con passed on Stephen Curry to take Johnny Flynn. He passed on DeMarcus Cousins to take Wesley Johnson. The Derek Williams pick was actually defensible because when you look at that draft, nobody from that draft has come back to haunt him. But those were 2 situations where even at the time they didn't make sense. I think Wesley Johnson was 23 when they picked him.
Well,
he was 23 years old.
But at that point, DeMarcus on that Minnesota team, you think that would have been a better situation for him than Sacramento?
I'm just saying, who'd you rather have?
Yeah, no, I understand.
I just feel like you put him with Kevin Love, and at least I have an identity now. But I don't think they're going to trade him. I think it's a moot point. I think if they're going to trade him, I tweeted this weekend. I think Detroit's the team.
I don't think they should trade him. I think they should hold on to him, get their franchise figured out, get themselves situated, and then find out whether or not he's committed to playing basketball.
I actually disagree. I would trade him, even though it's against everything I normally believe. Here's why I would trade him, because he's in year 3 now. By the time they get this whole franchise sorted out, it'll be at least a year, and at that point he's going to probably just leave and get the F out of there. So in a lot of ways, they should trade him right now. He'd have the most value.
But he also has his least value right now, coming off a 1-game suspension because he had a verbal altercation with his coach. The guy who's number 1 in his corner, by every account, Keith Smart has been his guy.
He's a terrible coach. He's just terrible.
It's a player with a bad attitude.
He's been playing Aaron Brooks this year over Isaiah Thomas, who's the only guy who actually looks for his teammates.
That's another guy with trade value, by the way. That guy has legit trade value.
Yeah, I tweeted some 3-teamer that ended up with the Celtics ended up getting Cousins and Kyle Lowry.
Of course you did.
Well, we gave up Rondo in the trade, though.
Oh.
Rondo went to Sacramento. Tariq Evans went to Toronto. And we ended up getting Cousins, Lowry, and Chuck Hayes. Something like that.
That seems like... Why would Toronto get rid of Lowry and take on Tariq? How does that make any sense?
That was admittedly the weak part of the trade. I had Isaiah Thomas going there.
Oh.
They got Tariq Evans and Isaiah Thomas.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, now you like it.
Well, I'll at least consider it.
Well, all the NBA teams are circling the Kings right now because they have these pieces that would be really interesting on other teams.
Well, they're very redundant at positions, too.
Oh, watching them in person was a revelation.
What's the point of having Marcus Thornton and Isaiah Thomas and Aaron Brooks
Yeah, they have all these shoot first. Well, Isaiah Thomas isn't a shoot first guard, but they have all these shoot first guys, just up and down the line, and then they have poor Chuck Hayes
and Jason Thompson.
Yeah,
like they're essentially the same guy.
Tyreek would be a really, really interesting flyer for somebody.
That's another guy that's got to find a decent situation.
I was thinking Dallas for him.
That would be great, right? I was just going to say he needs to learn how to play. He doesn't know how to play yet still. Him with Rick Carlisle, that would be interesting. But who does Dallas have to give up?
They have nobody.
They have nobody.
Dallas needs to decide whether it's time to trade Dirk.
That's weird.
Would you trade Dirk to the Lakers, Gasol to Denver, and then Dallas gets Iguodala and Kostakufis?
No.
Okay. Just making sure. So Dirk retires with Dallas.
That's what's going to happen.
Okay. I have to go.
That was
more people to call.
That was fun. I'm glad I got to sing. I probably won't be singing next week. Well, I'm less optimistic about next week than I was about going into this Cowboys game, but
well, either way, we're going to call you next week.
I look forward to it.
Joe House, Redskins, congratulations.
Thank you.
Talk to you.
HTTR.
All right, that's it for the special two-part mega BS Report playoff podcast. On Wednesday, we're going to have Smart Guy Wednesday. We're going to break Aaron Schatz out of his dungeon where he's just loading stats and trying to figure out what the heck's going to happen in this round one. And we'll probably have one other smart person who hopefully has an IQ over 140. Happy New Year's Eve. Drive safely. Get a ride. Don't drive if you've had a few. Be careful. We'll see you in 2013. BS Report checking out. Thanks for a great year. Thanks for spreading the word. And we'll talk to you.
So I get to sign off. Whoa!
Thank you for downloading the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Too much fun.
Check out more podcasts at the iTunes Music Store or at Pod Center at ESPNradio.com.
Peace out.